some disturbing news tonight. An F-35 fighter jet crashed in South Carolina after pilot was ejected. The pilot, thank God, was taken to a hospital after parachuting to safety into a North Charleston neighborhood about 2 p.m. on Sunday. But for the Air Force, that's celebrating 76 years of existence as one of the military's branches, what's even more disturbing about this is not just that it happened to a $80 to $100 million jet, and that it just kept flying and missing after this pilot was ejected, only to find out they found debris today. It's the third event. It's the third event documented as a Class A mishap over the past 2 weeks. Do you know what kind of mishap that means? It's an incident when damages reach $2.5 million or more, a Department of Defense aircraft is destroyed, or someone dies or is permanently disabled. It looks like all three of these things definitely happened to an $80 to $100 million jet. And the memes are going around and ha ha ha, but this is a serious thing. Because I jumped over to CNN, yes, CNN, and I read this headline written by Zachary B. Wolf of CNN. He said that jet the Marines lost, taxpayers will pay $1.7 trillion for the F-35 program. So here's the thing. We talk about accessibility, accountability, and adaptability on this podcast. Well, now we have to adapt to paying for 3 Class A mishaps involving the F-35 program. They even asked the public to help, okay? That's how bad it was. They said, FAA F-35's gone missing. Can you help find us? I saw it on a tree that a friend of mine texted me. Are you kidding me? Our military lost an F-35, a stealth fighter jet. The exact money is around $100 million. Wolf says the entire program for the F-35 is on track to cost $1.7 trillion over the lifetime of the plane. He adds trillion with a T. Joint Base Charleston then posted a social media meme, a media plea for information. I guess the biggest question here is not so much that it went missing, but why did the pilot eject himself? Was he self-ejected? Did the plane eject him? What the hell happened to the pilot here? That's my big question. We can ask how he lost it, but I wonder how he got ejected from the plane. Is this thing AI generated? I mean, I know everything else they want to do is AI generated, like electric vehicle. Is this an electric vehicle and we don't know? Did it just self-eject a pilot in the middle of North Carolina? Like, what the flip? It's a stealth fighter jet, by the way. And this has been a program for a long time, by the way. But I really gotta figure out who got the contract for this. We've been talking a bit about defense contracts. Was it vetted properly to give them the contract for this program? And by the way, Lockheed Martin is the defense contract rewardee, if you will. And Zach Wolf went on to say, guess what? Here's a statement that Lockheed Martin said. The global F-35 fleet has surpassed more than 721,000 cumulative flight hours, spans 17 nations, and 3 U.S. military services. Since F-35s began flying 17 years ago, there's been one pilot fatality, less than 10 confirmed destroyed aircraft. More than 965 F-35s have been delivered, and more than 430,000 sorties completed. But I think this has to do with red tape. There's a reason why apparently the Government Accountability Office is saying this program is more than a decade behind scheduled and $183 billion over original cost. You know, if you tapped Elon Musk instead of investigating him to do something like this, he would have got his team, his group together to do something even better. But no, let's go after Elon Musk because he's the bad guy in this whole situation. Meanwhile, he probably might have created better F-35s for you, and maybe if you awarded him a defense contract, we'd be in a different place. A pilot wouldn't have to be ejected from its plane. Just thinking outside the box here, Department of Defense. Just thinking out of the box here, DOJ, even though you want to go after Musk, right? Right. But I know there's a music thing. I know AMP is music, but I'm fired up. Because when you want to hold, when you feel like it, when we feel like it, we should hold the government accountable. And thank God this pilot is okay. But I'll tell you what, God has a funny way of doing things. And maybe if we didn't know that 2 other mishaps happened, we wouldn't have cared about this third one. But because this third one made a real big splash, crash, if you will, well, guess what? It's time to tell you, there have been other mishaps like this. There are other training exercises that go awry and helicopters go crashing. We just don't talk about it enough. It becomes a headline for 1 second, then boom, notification's done, and that's it. But if we're putting $1.7 trillion into this military jet program, shouldn't we have a say in who gets the contract? Maybe these defense contracts should be voted on by we the people, since we're paying for the frickin' program. How about that? One leg up with Alex Garrett, listeners. And by the way, you might ask, what has to do with the culture? What has to do with society? Well, we as a culture are paying for this. This has become a cultural issue now because it's been memed, and it makes the government look stupid for losing a $100 million jet. But then I want to tie something else into it. Because I don't know for sure. I don't think it's true. I don't think this pilot has PTSD. But we found out, here at the One Leg Up with Alex Garrett podcast, found out that the FAA is suspecting nearly 5,000 pilots are concealing medical issues to keep flying. That's right. 5,000 civilian pilots may be providing false information or excluding it during their medical examinations in order to continue flying. And you know what they're flying? You know what they're flying? They're flying commercial airlines. Commercial airlines. Who fly for Part 121 cargo and Part 135 charter or tour operators. But yeah, we have commercial airline pilots, according to the FAA, who might have some kind of medical condition that could otherwise ground them. because these pilots also are trying to double dip to getting VA benefits. So you want to get your VA benefits and you want to be an FAA affiliated pilot, and by June of 2021, 4,800 cases of FAA database of veterans certified as civilian pilots also had disability benefits through the VA. How is this allowed? That commercial airlines are being flown by a number of pilots that might be otherwise grounded. Should that scare us? Or should we just be used to anything in society today? Should this be a norm or not? Should this be acceptable? Thirty-seven hundred sixty-five pilots reported healthcare avoidance because they feared losing their medical certification. This is the thing. 2/3 of pilots could be obscuring information. So 2/3 of our pilots could be, in this situation, could be flying a commercial airline, and, they said maybe the guy that was flying the Malaysia Airlines flight that disappeared, maybe he had some PTSD, had some issue, mental discrepancy there that led him to crash that flight or lead it to disappear. By the way, there's an investigation back to 2002 called Operation Safe Pilot. All this, which I can link up in the description below, from FreightWaves, which picked up on the story originally posted by the Washington Post. And I picked it up at the Star Ledger from Newark. They actually have some really good stories that impact us all, I think. But if this thing's going all the way back to nearly 20 years ago, 21 years ago, then why has the problem continued? Because I believe of the red tape. There is government red tape that probably led these aircrafts to be allowed to fly the F-35 without any kind of advanced checkup, God forbid. And it's probably the same kind of culture within the FAA. We just allowed it. FAA affiliate physicians telling pilots, don't write that down, that you had VA benefits and you might have a disability preventing you from flying. But 2/3 is the number I want you to know. 2/3 could be flying commercial airlines of these 5,000 pilots concealing medical issues to keep flying. That should be otherwise grounded. We don't know what happened today. And we damn should get some answers about that F-35 if we're going to be paying into it millions and millions and millions, trillions of dollars. 1.7 trillion, to be honest. But until we fully get answers, we'll speculate, we'll make memes. But we should also know some real facts here. And the fact that stands out in my mind is that these pilots, in the military or out of the military, seem to easily become civilian pilots for commercial airlines and tour airplanes as well. But now this is all brought to light. So my question is, what's the FAA going to do about it? And what's the VA going to do about it? And if they're being lied to, by the way, there's 600,000 certified pilots by the FAA. They're being lied to. They should take action. And right now, about 60 pilots of the 5,000 have been suspended temporarily to correct records and undergo new aeromedical examinations to restore their medical certificates. But of course, it took a media outlet to figure this out, because the FAA, according to the Washington Post and elsewhere, FAA had largely hidden the investigation from the public. Gee, don't you think we should know this, FAA? If we are supposed to rely on pilots to get us to and fro in the air, shouldn't we know that there's a class of pilots? And thank you for your service to the veterans of the commercial airlines. Thank you for those who fought the war. But I have a problem with you double dipping, because that double dipping could be harmful for regular passengers just trying to get to and from safely. And I don't know if this pilot that was ejected today will fly again, will be too traumatized or too physically injured to fly again. But it all adds up. It's like a free-for-all in the skies, thanks to bureaucratic red tape. And the bureaucratic red tape is also the concealing of this information. So I hope that we get answers more and more from the FAA. I hope we get answers more and more from the Air Force on what happened today and the American military and the Department of Defense, and that the red tape can finally be removed from this administration so that we can get clear and honest answers. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to worry about pilots that might have some kind of neurological disorder from their time in war? I hope I don't scare you to fly tonight or tomorrow. But it's something you should know. And it's something we should keep track of. Because that's part of the podcast mission, is to hold accountable. It's all about accountability, accessibility, and adaptability. And I think we should hold the FAA accountable for this. I think we should hold the Department of Defense accountable for this, and the Air Force accountable for this. And especially because we're taxpayers. But I also think that we should be holding, asking questions of these agencies and see where they go with it. See how many cases get closed where they properly discipline a pilot who's lied to the VA or the FAA. Really, the FAA. Because the airwaves and what goes on in the sky is part of our culture too. Because millions of people we love and know travel by plane. So yes, this is a cultural issue that I'm talking about. Not just because the memes were made today, but because we have real lives in the hands of real life pilots. Every day there's a takeoff from any of our major airports or minor airports. Those pilots choose to take those lives into their hands. And I think we should be damned if we let concealing continue without pressuring the FAA to do something about it. And we'll be damned if we don't get answers from the Department of Defense about what happened today and also the other Class A mishaps that have been going on in the last few weeks. Would be nice to know, wouldn't it? Links to all of this to break it down more is going to be in the description below, but I just feel like you won't hear these stories elsewhere. That's why I want to bring it to your attention. And I felt like culture in the sky was a great topic tonight because there's some shenanigery going on. And we'll talk to you soon on One Leg Up with Alex Garrett.